welcome you to this, the first meeting of Oscott Ward Committee. It's the first meeting that we've had of this kind, so we're all learning together, so you'll have to excuse me if I make any mistakes. So just some introductions that we need to make. There will be number two is that I have to advise you that for those listening or participating in the online meeting, that a recording of the meeting will be available for future record. Is there any apologies or anything like that? Has anybody got any apologies? No? No? Right.
I haven't, Chair.
You have?
I haven't, sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. Before I start the meeting officially, I'd like to pay a couple of tributes. One is to our old colleague, as this is the first meeting of Oscott that we've had since Keith passed away, and I'd like to have a minute's silence for our colleague Keith. He's sadly missed within the ward, and also that we also have a minute's silence as well included in there for the people who have lost people due to the COVID outbreak, and we remember all those people that have lost their loved ones at this moment in time. So if you just take a few minutes to reflect on our colleagues that are not with us any longer for 1 minute, please. Thank you. I think that's it. I think that's it, isn't it, colleagues? Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Dring, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, colleagues. Item number 4 is an information update, and that will be carried out by Rachel Chapman from Public Health. Rachel, are you here?
I am. Thank you, Councillor Dring. Just sorting out microphone and camera. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rachel.
Great, thank you. So I'm here just to give you an update on COVID. So I'll give you an update around the figures locally, and then just sort of briefly run through some information around testing, the vaccination programme and our COVID community champions. And then I'm happy to take any questions at the end. If I'm not able to answer them, I'll take them away with me and get the answers for you, if that's all right. So we are actually just 1 year on from our first case of COVID in Birmingham. The first case was on the 3rd of March. So yeah, just the 1 year on, and you know, sadly since then a lot of people have lost their lives to COVID, as we've just been remembering. Oh, somebody can't hear. Can everybody else?
Yes,
Yes,
we
can hear you.
Okay, fine. So nationally, the picture is that rates are continuing to decline from the peak that was just after Christmas. Some areas have slowed down their rate of descent or even stopped declining. Locally in Birmingham, the rates are still coming down, but our rates were quite a lot higher than a lot of other areas. The West Midlands regionally is still has high rates of COVID. So although the rates are coming down, we are running above the national average. Oh, have we got somebody got a problem there? I'll carry on. So The international evidence that we're getting through is that vaccination is having a positive impact on transmission. So it is preventing transmission as well as reducing the number of serious cases and hospital admissions and deaths, which is really, really good news. And as I'm sure you're all aware, we had the national roadmap a couple of weeks ago with the announcements for coming out of the lockdown in a very staged manner. But all of this is very dependent on several factors, particularly our uptake of vaccinations, the pressure on the NHS, making sure that we don't see a rebound in the number of hospital admissions as we come out of lockdown, that we don't see a big increase in case rates as well, and also the new variants. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but with all viruses, we do see mutations and variants emerge. Coming out of lockdown is very dependent on us not having any variants that become of real concern to the community. So in terms of the data for Birmingham, our 7-day case rate, so over the last 7 days, the rate across Birmingham is just around 120 cases per 100,000 population, compared to the previous week where it was 176 per 100,000. And at the worst, the peak a few weeks ago, we were over 800 per 100,000. So you can see the rates have come down significantly. However, these rates are still relatively high. We had just over 1,400 new cases in Birmingham in the last week. So this is still a significant number of cases, and we need to get the rates lower than this. I say Birmingham, our case rate is above the national average. The national average is around 89 per 100,000. So that just gives you a sort of a benchmark. Spread, we are still seeing, and this is, I think I'm getting an echo here. Can everybody go on mute, because that tends to help.
Can you all mute when somebody's speaking?
Thank you. Hopefully that will work.
Okay, Rachel. Okay.
Thank you very much. So the pattern that we've seen throughout the pandemic, and we're still seeing, is that most spread is through household and social interactions. And that's where the national messages about social distancing, about maintaining lockdown at the moment until we start to come out of it, is still really, really important. In terms of hospital admissions, obviously over the last few weeks, our NHS has been very, very stretched. Over the last week, our hospital admissions, they are coming down, and we're ranging between 24 and 56 new cases a day at University Hospitals Birmingham. That's the one I've got the data for. So we are still getting quite a lot of new hospital admissions from COVID, although the rates are coming down. In terms of more locally in Oscott, your COVID data over the last week, there were 25 reported cases. So in terms of numbers, the ward ranks 12th out of our 69 wards, where the first is the highest. So relatively high number of cases in the ward. But then when we look at the rates, because it's a relatively large ward, your COVID rates is very similar to Birmingham. So you're actually 22nd out of all of the wards. But as I say, like, this is still 25 new reported cases, and what we want to do is get these numbers as low as we possibly can, so that as we come out of lockdown, we're not going to risk the rates shooting back up again like they did when we came out of the lockdown at the end of November. The rates shot up very, very quickly, and that's absolutely what we want to avoid this time round. In terms of the spread of cases, the pattern that we're seeing consistently is that the majority of cases are in the working age population, so the 20 to 59-year-olds, and that's exactly the same locally in Oscott. We are seeing proportionately or disproportionately more cases in our ethnic minority groups across Birmingham, and that's been a consistent pattern throughout the pandemic. So moving on to testing, there are two different types of tests available at the moment. Both of them need a swab that goes up the nose and the back of the throat. One is for people who've got symptoms of COVID, and this is the PCR test. And this is where you go to a testing site, it's sent away to a lab, and you get the result a day or two later. And that's for people who've got symptoms. The other test is called the lateral flow test, and this is for people who haven't got symptoms. So this is the one that's available it's now at the Hippodrome. It was at the Utility Arena, but it's now at the Hippodrome. We've got a number of other sites that you can access lateral flow tests, and also many of our pharmacies are offering it. If you go on the Birmingham website, you can see where to get these. And we're encouraging anybody who has to go out to work rather than being able to work from home to get themselves tested twice a week. It's the lateral flow test that's also being rolled out when our schools go back next week. So in our secondary schools, they will be testing students. Initially, they'll get 3 tests in school in the first couple of weeks, and then the students will get home kits so that they can carry out the testing at home. And this is the same with the staff. In the primary schools, they're not testing the children routinely, but the staff have got access to routine testing. And then it will also be made available for families and care bubbles for children who are at school. And the aim of all of this is to pick up cases that we perhaps wouldn't already know about. So we do know that quite a lot of people get COVID but don't have any symptoms. So the lateral flow test is good at picking up people who perhaps wouldn't otherwise know that they've got the infection, so that they can self-isolate and help to reduce the spread. I think what we will see over the next couple of months is expansion of this programme across different parts of the community. It's also worth saying that workplaces, so if anybody on this call is linked with a workplace, if there's more than 50 employees at that workplace, the workplace can register directly with the national government to be part of their testing programme. So they will get test kits for the workforce to do twice a week as well. And again, it's that same principle of identifying people who've got COVID who perhaps wouldn't already know about it. So moving on to the vaccine, as you know, the vaccine programme has been rolled out over the last few weeks. The NHS doing an amazing job, and every time I see the number of how many people are vaccinated, I think it is incredible. The way the vaccine programme is working is it was agreed by the National Panel of Experts, the JCVI, Joint Committee on Vaccinations and Immunisations, that the key target groups should be those who are more likely to be hospitalised and be really ill or at risk of dying from COVID. Hence, starting with our oldest age population, because that's who we know are most at risk, and then working down through the age groups. So we are, as I say, working through the over 80s, the over 70s, over 60s, and also the clinically extremely vulnerable. A couple of weeks ago, that group was expanded, so there's more people now within that group who are eligible for the vaccine. Anybody who's eligible is being invited to attend. So when you get your invite, I strongly recommend that you go and get the vaccine. All of the studies that we've seen so far are showing good protection from serious illness, reducing the risk of going into hospital, and also that it's helping to stop the spread of COVID as well. That's what the most recent studies are showing. So that is really, really good news. Across Birmingham, our uptake of vaccine generally is good, and I checked your local figures for the ward, and actually you're running slightly above the Birmingham average, which is really, really good news. So certainly in the over 70s, we're seeing 90% and above take up of the vaccine. In the 65 to 70-year-olds, 85% have had the vaccine, and actually coming down to that 60 to 65 group, which is the next group being offered, just over half, so 55% so far. And then in terms of the clinically extremely vulnerable, just over 80%. So this is really, really good news. Obviously, we want to drive the figures as high as we possibly can. We know from data across Birmingham and also from national data that there are some groups who are less likely to take up the vaccine. especially those who live in more deprived areas or some ethnic groups. So there is a lot of work going on about how we can better engage with those groups to understand their concerns and provide them with the correct information so that they can make a more informed choice about getting vaccinated. Really important message is that anybody who is vaccinated absolutely still needs to follow the guidance. It does take a few weeks for the vaccine to be effective, and we know that there is still, as I said earlier, quite a lot of COVID circulating within the community. So even if you've had the vaccine, it's really important that you still follow the social distancing guidance, that you wear a face covering when you're out and about, that you do all the hand hygiene, because this just reduces the risk even further of catching COVID. So it's a really important message for anybody who's had the vaccine, as well as all of us who are still waiting for it. I mentioned earlier the different variants. As I said, viruses do mutate. This happens regularly, and there is a lot of work monitoring these mutations, these variants, to see what difference it's making. The data that we have so far, the vaccines do still work against the variants that we're looking at, but they might not be quite as good at stopping transmission. Having said that, it is absolutely still worth getting the vaccine, possibly even more important to get it. Anything that we can do to protect ourselves and our communities from COVID is worth doing. But the ongoing work will develop new and better versions of the vaccine as we move forward. And then if I can just mention the COVID champions, we've got 744 of these to date across Birmingham. I think we've got 7 in Oscott. So this is a real plea that please could we have some more, which would be great. We're aiming to have 1,500 across the whole city. And the idea of COVID champions is that when people sign up, it means they empower themselves and others to stay as safe as possible during this pandemic. And the way that they do that is that we share regular information with them. So changes to guidance, new services, information on how to stay safe, that sort of information. There's been some information recently around the vaccines. The champions are invited to exclusive webinars with topic experts and have the opportunity to ask questions directly. And then we're also very keen to get feedback from the COVID champions so they can let us know what's going on the ground, any feedback about the messages and what's working and perhaps what isn't working. So really sort of strongly promote being a COVID champion, and if anybody's interested, there's a sign up form on the website. And then finally, just the other thing to mention is the council does have a whistleblowing helpline. Again, this is on the council website. So that if you come across any workplaces particularly where you don't feel that COVID safety measures are being followed, that you can let us know, which means that we can then pass it on to one of our relevant teams who will be able to look into it. And it's actually been a really, really effective way of working. We've had several thousand reports through the whistleblowing helpline, and as I say, it means that we can go out and work with those workplaces to improve COVID safety. So if you see something that you feel just isn't right, please let us know. So I think that's my update. More than happy to take any questions.
Right. Thank you, Rachel, for the very comprehensive report. I'm glad that we're getting some good responses with regard to take up on the vaccines within Oscott. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad we're getting good responses on our vaccine, but I'll open it up to questions. Has anybody in the who's attending the meeting got any questions? Could you put your hand, show your hands, please, if you've got any questions? No? No questions? Can I ask you one question, Rachel?
Of course.
There's talk with the earlier vaccines, the Pfizer, and the Oxford vaccine, that they may mix the two. You could have had the Pfizer first and you're waiting for your second, and you could land up having the Oxford. Is there any news on that one? I hope they're not going to mix them.
I think they were actually going to do some studies where they looked into this, and so what they need to do with all of these things is carry out studies where they test it out to see what difference it makes, if it makes any difference. And a few weeks ago, I think they announced that some of those studies were going to start. I haven't seen any results from it yet, so I haven't seen any sort of early data from that. So I can't tell you specifically yet, but it is something they are looking into, because what they want to do is make sure that we've got the most effective way of giving vaccines. And because the Pfizer and the Oxford vaccine are both developed in slightly different ways, it might be that by giving one then the other, we actually get a better immune response than just by giving the same one. And that's exactly what they need to look into.
Right. And also, have you got any figures on the take-up from our ethnic minority groups within the Oscott ward?
Not at the level of a ward, I haven't, no. The data are done at the level of Birmingham, and that's where we see we have got reduced uptake in some of our ethnic groups. The trouble is, once we start getting down to a ward, the numbers are very, very small, so you know, it can vary quite easily just through sort of natural sort of variation. So it's difficult to do that at the level of a ward.
Okay, thank you. Brenda Wilson, you got your hand up.
Hi. Hello, I finally
Hi.
got the sound to work. Hi, I'm due to have my vaccine in about COVID vaccine in about 2 weeks' time. I'm a little bit concerned about some side effects, because I heard that the Oxford vaccine, there are some side effects to that one.
So in terms of side effects, when they do, first of all, if I'd say when they did all the vaccine trials, that is absolutely one of the things that they're looking out for and monitoring. And a lot of people can have the vaccine, and it doesn't really matter which one it is. This applies across all of them, and no side effects whatsoever. Some people just get a bit of soreness in their arm where they get the vaccine, very much like if you've had the flu vaccine. Some people can get a sore arm for 24 hours. Some people can just experience that just don't feel right for a little while, and again, that's just the same as the flu vaccine, that most vaccines this can happen with, and it's just your body dealing with and sort of responding to the vaccine. In terms of serious side effects, they are very, very rare. So from the point of view of the side effect profile with the vaccine, it isn't significantly different to any of the others. So I would say to you, I certainly wouldn't let it stop me getting the vaccine. If you have a chat with whoever's giving you the vaccine, they'll be able to give you some advice just on, if you get any of the minor side effects, how to deal with it. But certainly from the point of view of the types of side effects that we would see with the vaccine, it's very, very similar to we'd see with the flu vaccine or any other vaccine. Does that help?
Have you finished, Brenda? Brenda? No, she's gone.
No, hello. So I was muted. Yes, so that's fine.
I'm going to just pop something in the chat. There is the local NHS have developed some frequently asked questions, and that's the website. So there's some really useful information there. So that, you know, that might be able to give you a little bit more. But as I say, certainly I've spoken to lots of people and they've been, you know, absolutely fine, nothing at all with the vaccine. So.
Right. Thank you, Rachel. And Mr. Bryan, you had your hand up. Was there an accident? Mr. Bryan? He's took it back down again now. Is there any more questions for Rachel? No. Rachel, can I thank you for coming and thank you for the very comprehensive report.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I
Right.
was going to ask a question, Barbara, but she's gone now.
No, she's still here. You can still ask it.
I was just wondering what the council is doing to try and encourage more of the ethnic minority to take up these injections, and why do they seem to be reluctant to do it?
Have you gone, Rachel?
Rachel has left Councillor Dring, but I might be able to partly answer Mr. Bryan's question.
If you'd like to, Neil.
Yeah, I can't fully answer it, but
I mean, that's been a big campaign. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Dring. So that's what I was going to say. So a lot of the Black, Asian and minority ethnic councillors from across the city, they recently released a video encouraging people from the various communities across Birmingham to start uptaking the vaccine. In addition to that, the local clinical commissioning group, they're working with a lot of the GP practices to put a lot of messages out within communities around the vaccine uptake and to try and prevent a lot of the vaccine hesitancy at the moment. And in addition, there are lots of community groups right across the constituency, including Perry Bar ward, who are now looking, if you like, to create their own messages to speak to members of the various communities. So there's lots going on, and you know, the council is being really proactive along with public health and the local clinical commissioning groups to try and get, you know, people to understand, if you like, and answer a lot of the queries and the questions and the hesitance, to encourage them to uptake the vaccine. So there's quite a lot going on.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay.
Keith, you had your hand up. Keith Airy. Keith. No. Okay.
No, actually, I just must have moved.
No more questions. Right. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is local updates, right? The first one on the list is myself, and just to update you on a few things that's happening in the ward. We're still operating as normal, but obviously it's by virtual or by emails. I do jump in the car occasionally and drive around the ward just to see what I can spot that's going on that shouldn't be going on. One of the main things is fly tipping. We're getting an awful lot of complaints about fly tipping, and we're getting an awful lot of fly tipping in Oscott at the moment, especially up on the Bandywood estate. The village green that you're all aware of, which is down at Glenmead Field, we have managed to keep the grass cut and our application has gone in, but I'm sure that Neil will update you on how far we've got with that. We're getting a lot of problems as a result of lockdown and people being furloughed with financial difficulties, and they are coming through, and we're dealing with those as they do come through and passing them on to the department where they've not received monies that they're entitled to. And a lot of them are the businesses, small businesses, which we've got a lot of in Oscott, down the Shady Lane areas like that. And they are being dealt with slowly, but at least they're getting the money that they're entitled to. One of the big issues that we've got at the moment is housing repairs, whether it's because of lockdown or I don't know, but we are having problems getting housing repairs done within the Oscott area. The other problem that we've got, and I'm sure Mr. Brown will be coming in on this one, is potholes and trees. and that will be also on the agenda later on, because I think we've got a couple of people here from Carriageways to answer questions. That's my report, just bringing you up to date on where we are and what we're doing. We are business as usual, so if you need any help, just contact me. You've got my email address, and I will make sure that you get a response to whatever you're asking your questions on. And the next one on the agenda is Fleet and Waste Management, and I've got down Les Williams and Justin Hillier at the meeting. Are you both there? Hello, Les Williams.
Just
Can
up,
you
put my microphone on, sorry. Yes, good evening all. Hopefully you can hear and see me.
Good evening, Les.
Yeah,
Justin, I'm afraid, I'm not sure if he's been able to make it, but I should be able to cover everything. Justin's done a lot of hours today, so if he's got any sense, he's in bed by now. But I'll update the best I can, hopefully. So just a quick update on waste management. This is the first one, and please invite us to, because we like to come and share good news and bad news, should I say it. I've got some good news to share tonight. I just picked up on what you mentioned about fly tipping, Councillor. We've just been able to gain some more funds for our street cleansing service, and that looks like we're just looking at recruiting people into the post now. That will give us 4 dumping crews across the city. So these dumping crews will work in some of our hotspot areas, tackling the dumping. Our waste enforcement colleagues are just recruiting as well, and they're going to be giving us some resource to try and look at the regular spots and to try and identify who is dumping, so we can tackle it with a no-nonsense approach to dealing with these people, should we catch them. I would ask anybody that sees people dumping to please record it and get a picture which is safely. That's really good. Or if you want to come forward, if you've got a registration, we're more than happy to take that forward so we can stop this. I will say that we've noticed in the last 12 months that fly tipping has gone up. It's gone up quite significantly, and it's gone up not just in Birmingham, it's across the country. We measure ourselves obviously on our performance on fly tipping and dumping. We're no better, no worse than any other local authority, but we still do have a problem. So we are taking the steps of bringing these extra 4 crews in, which are not a temporary thing, it's a long-term thing. Also, with the money we've gained, we're bringing in some more graffiti crews. So we're seeing an increase in graffiti across the city. And where it's centrally based currently, we're going to be sticking a graffiti crew at Pennybar Depot, so they're locally at hand, be able to come out and pick up any graffiti that we see, so we can act a bit quicker. We've also got another thing that we're doing called Love Your Streets, and again the money that's coming in is going to add into that. So that's looking like 2 or 3 crews, which is not a lot, but it's going to be around engagement. So if we've got a main high street that we've got problems with dumping on, bag advancements, litter problems, all sorts of things to do with litter and dumping, etc. They're going to be out in talking to people, working with people and clearing up. And again, we're just looking at recruiting the staff to do that now. And again, it is a long-term plan. You probably may or may not have noticed, through December, January and into early February, we had some new vehicles. It's part of our ongoing renewal of vehicles. Refuse collection have mainly come in. That's looking like, I can't tell you exactly how many at Pennybar, but across the city we're going to bring in about 70 by about May. So some of our older worn out vehicles that were given a poor service and creating miscollections, they're piecemeal being replaced, the oldest ones first obviously, and some of our hire trucks, and that's improving our miscollection rates. So where we would fail to collect waste because of a vehicle breakdown, we're finding that's lesser so now to a large degree. And I'd like to think that people have probably noticed that through this pandemic since last March, we've been able to maintain a full service. We did have to still a bit of street cleansing in the early days because of people being off. But we've been able to maintain your recycling residual and your garden collection, should you have one, to a good level, a good standard across this last 12 months. But with the new vehicles and with the plans we've got to put some more enforcement and some more cruising to tackle dumping, graffiti, etc., we feel we're moving in a direction that's going to be better for the general public. You may have also noticed our small mechanical sweepers that come along and sweep the pavements. We've just had a delivery of 30 of those brand new 70 plate vehicles. So they'll be out in your streets. I think Penny Bar have had some delivered. I think they're having 8 altogether, 8 or 9. So they'll be working across the wards. And again, they're far more reliable, far better, far more user friendly. And that the hope of them is to get the streets cleaned up better, quicker, and to a good level. Councillor, for May, can I share something on my screen around performance for our services?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, I didn't want to just do it without firstly asking. So you may have to expand your screens. I'll get it as large as I can. Can you see that, everybody?
Yeah, we've got it in. Well, I have, yeah.
So what we do, we record on our miscollections. It's a bit a busy spreadsheet. This is our internal one, and this is where we look at wards and how well they're performing. And this is since 2 weeks across in February up to the 27th, which was last week. And if you can see my pointer, Oscott's down now. So the blue there, that's your miscollections on residual, and that's your miscollections on recycling. So we're not by far the best. There is better, but we're not by far the worst. So I'd like to think that across the ward, we're given a good level of service on our miscollections. And obviously, we want to get that down to 0. And that's what we're working hard to do at the depot. If I can share you another slide with you. So I'm going to flick through because next one, I believe. So this is the fly tipping report. So if we look at this top box, we can see a steady line moving up, and it's measured over a 12-month period. This is since the 1st of January 2019. So we do a long-term measure, and this is how fly tipping goes up and down across the whole of the city. And currently we're on an uphill trend, as we can see there. So over the last 6 to 8 weeks, it has gone up, and it's just before that it was below the trend. That was around Christmas time. So just to give you some idea on why we have a trough. For Oscott, I don't need to jump off my screen, but Oscott, blimey, where are we? I can't see if we're looking on. Oh, there, so here we are in Oscott, here, if you can see that. So Oscott, if we look at the reports of dumping, I would say we're around about 400 for that time period. And when we measure that against another ward, which are at 2,000, again, I'd probably argue, you know, it's a positive sign for Oscott that dumping isn't as bad as what it can be, some of the other wards. And we'd like to think that we got it under control, and with this extra resource coming in, we feel we'll get that down from the 400 to 0, fingers crossed. So, you know, that was just a brief look at where we're measuring our performance across the city and that.
Well, in Oscott, we do try to keep on top of the fly tipping. As you know, I'm always on the sending emails to Justin, and I've got to say that we have got quite a good relationship, and they have been very forthcoming in helping us out in Oscott. And considering that there's one councillor now in Oscott as opposed to 2, it is quite a big ward, and we've still managed to keep it fairly clean. But we've also had the public, you know, helping us, the residents have helped, because we've got a lot of litter pickers now in Oscott, and they are keeping it tidy. And we've got the Friends of the Questlett Nature Reserve and the Aldridge Road Rec and all around there, all being regularly litter picked, and I'm grateful to all the residents that are helping us out on that one. Can I just ask you one question where I'm getting
So you did break up at the end there, Councillor.
I'm getting a lot of,
we're more than keen. I'm sorry, Councillor.
No. Can you hear me? I'm getting a lot of complaints about the garden waste, where people are trying to buy into the service, but when they phone up, they're not getting any responses. That needs addressing. Can you hear me, Les?
I can now. I couldn't hear for a couple of minutes when you started talking, I'm afraid.
Well, what I was saying was that we try to keep on top of things in Oscott, especially the fly tipping, and we've had a good response from the Peribar depot in getting it moved as quick as we possibly can. But we've also had a lot of help from the residents in Oscott with regard to litter picking, and you know, the crews dug around and pick up the grey bags, especially when you've got the nature reserve and the Aldridge Road Rec and Shady Lane, places that are hotspots for litter. You know, we are getting quite a lot of help from the residents, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the residents that are helping us and the Friends of the Nature Reserve who are putting in quite a lot of time on litter picking in Oscott, and other residents as well. And I mentioned about the garden waste. I'm getting a lot of complaints that people are trying to phone in to buy the service, but they can't get no response. So how can you deal with that? Can you make sure that people can access to order the garden waste service when they phone up, that the phones are being manned or answered?
Yes, I'll take that back, Councillor, about the garden waste. I will say this year we've been not inundated, but we've had a very, very good take up on people for garden waste, and that is causing some delays. One of my slides that I didn't show you, that we're looking like we're having more people taking part in the service than ever before. Obviously, that's going to give us some problems because we need to take on some more vehicles and crews. But I'll feedback about people getting stuck on phone lines. But just to touch on, if people want to go out and do a bit of a litter pick and etc., please, we're more than happy to help, take part, remove waste for you. Let's all work together. Let's get the community spirit back in. The last thing I just wanted to tell you before I did go off is Peribar Depot, if you know it well, it's been there for many years. Justin, you made reference to, he started work there 35 years ago when his dad was a dustman, so he's seen it from cradle to grave just after it was built. We're just about to regenerate that depot. It's all been signed off, and I think the bulldozer's coming in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to have a 21st century transfer station there, which is going to be a million times better than what it currently is. The building's going to take us about 18 months because they're going to completely rebuild the depot. But it's going to be a place for the council to say, look how good we are. We're going to show some good practice there. It should not affect any of our collections. We're making lots of plans that it doesn't affect anything, but we are keeping operational while the building works are going on. So obviously, any other meetings you have, I'm happy to come and update and share any information around that, but I don't foresee any problems at this point while it's going on.
But our collections will be as good normal.
Yes, we might be tipping some of our waste away, but that shouldn't affect the collections. It's just getting rid of at the depot. It's not when we actually collect.
Right. Thank you. Is there any questions? Anybody want to raise the hand? Anybody want to ask a question? Brenda Wilson. Brenda. Okay, Brenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it? It's not up on the screen. Les, about has he heard about? It's been on the news recently about these litter cams that they're putting up, that they can actually pick up registrations from people who throw litter from the cars. Has he heard about these? And what's the possibility that we could have some in Birmingham and in the Oscott ward?
Yes, Brenda, thanks for that. We're looking at many different scenarios that we can use to catch the fly tippers. I think if anybody watched the Panorama programme on Tuesday night, was it? You know, it's countrywide, and Birmingham want to do their bit to stop it happening, where people come along in vans or chuck their can of pop out the car window. Cameras are being bought as well, so we'll be targeting hotspots. We're doing lots and lots of work to try and change people's the way they dump their waste and that, and get everybody to use the services that are there for them. So yes, Brenda, there's nothing off the table for us, and if it's a camera in a car that we can use, it is something and everything that we are considering.
That's great. Very impressive. Thank you.
Yeah. If there's no other questions, just on a personal note, Councillor, I know in the previous presenter's presentation we were talking about vaccines. I had my vaccine last week, last Friday, and I think I had the Pfizer vaccine. I had a bit of a sore arm for a couple of hours and I felt sleepy in the afternoon. Other than that, it's not affected me one bit whatsoever. Councillor Finn Bryan's had his hand up. Dead, so
yeah, Mr. Williams, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
I would just like to say thank you for the system that you've operated now for a long while, this booking system, which I found is much better than the old system where you just went down on spec and queued up in long queues. The several times I've used that system, and I've got there a few minutes early, and it's been perfect. Well done.
Yeah, I think if the pandemic has done one good thing, if it stopped the queues at the tip when people want to go by booking it, because the same amount of people get through as what they sit in the queue, it's got to be a positive, and I don't think we'll go back from that because it does work really well.
Yeah, perfect. Well done. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you have a good experience, so that's really good.
I still wouldn't mind me recycling bins being collected regularly. 3 times since Christmas I've missed it, and I can't. It's unbelievable, really. I'm in a small grove. There's bins either side of my recycling, but they miss it. I did report it to Councillor Dring one time, but even this week they missed it. But I waited for the ordinary bit collection to come, and he took it away for me. But I don't know, perhaps I've upset somebody in the past somewhere. I don't know. Thank you very much. Generally, the system is very good.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure we couldn't have upset you. You couldn't upset us, Derek. Councillor Dring, if you got me that address, I'll have a look at that while we're missing it.
When I did report Mr. Brown's recycling, I must admit they did come straight out and collect it.
That's correct.
I'd like thank the Peribar Depot for the cooperation they've given us during this lockdown. I think it's been worth its weight in gold, and you've got to give credit where it's due. I think we've not had a bad service in Oscott, so thank you very much, Les. Okay.
Thanks, I will pass that to Justin, who he prides himself on giving a good service from the depot. So I'll share that thanks to him and his management.
And thank him for the litter pickers and the pickers and the grey bags that he sent up this week. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Councillor.
Thanks for coming. Right, next item on the agenda, Sergeant Claire Jones. Is she here? She is. Hello, Claire.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Oscott meeting.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is my first time meeting many of you virtually. I've been here a little over a year now. It's been strange times, to say the least, with COVID. First time we're having to police during a pandemic, so that's a bit strange and comes with its own challenges, but we're getting through it, and hopefully we're near the end. There's light at the end of that tunnel. It's certainly been different during COVID. We've had different priorities because of that. You can imagine some things aren't as active as they were, just by nature of the fact of sticking to the rules and us trying not to spread, and obviously keeping our officers safe as well. The force is keen to let everybody know that crime is down, crime is low. I'd like to say we can take the praise for that, but I don't know whether COVID's got a part to play in that as well. Everything's a bit different. People are at home, less chance for people to break in. For example, people are at home. But I'm sure we do have an impact on those figures as well. If I just share some of those with you, if we look at the crime figures over the last 8 weeks, so for the Oscott ward, if we look at from the 30th of December to the 23rd of February, if we take burglary and have a look at that, there was 24 burglary offences over that 8-week period. So we've got a weekly average of 3 burglaries. It may sound quite a lot on the face of it, but when we broke that down and looked at the burglaries, only 4 out of those 24 was burglaries as a member of the public would know it, as in a stranger breaking into a premises and stealing property. Some of them were domestic related, people coming in as a trespasser. Some of them were HMOs, shared occupancies, breaking into each other's rooms without permission. And one was actually insecure. It was an opportunist that snuck in and took car keys. Also now, with regards to burglaries, we include shed breaks within those figures for burglary, and many of those were shed breaks or garage breaks as well. So on the face of it, it may seem, oh, we've had 24 burglaries, 3 burglaries a week on average, but we can dwindle that down a lot more. So we're not doing too badly at all. In terms of robberies, we've had 9 over the last 8 weeks. Some of them are very recent offences. We've had a very recent spate of robberies. You may have heard of it, just people talking in the community. A few different carjackings that we've had, a few cars go, and a few attempts. I can report back and just let you know that we've had some positive action with regards to one of those offenders. Some of our PCSOs recognised one of the offenders in that series of offences. I think they've committed about 11 different offences over the West Mids period area, so not just Oscott alone, they have been crossing over into other areas. But our PCSOs recognised who they were just through local interactions. We've managed to identify him, send an arrest team round. They've locked him up and recovered many items of the stolen property as well as the weapons. So he was charged yesterday and he'll be going off to court for those offences. So hopefully that spate's been nipped in the bud, and good work by our PCSOs. Vehicle crime, that's our highest offence in terms of figures. So we've had 29 vehicle offences over the last 8 weeks, which is averages out to just over 3.5 offences a week. Vehicle crime, it's broken down in terms of theft of motor vehicles. 8 of those were theft ofs, and 10 of those were theft froms. Some of them are opportunists. They go around just trying car door handles. Some of them are smashing windows and just taking whatever might be on display. So again, we just encourage you not to leave any items on display just for those opportunists that might be going around. And then the theft of motor vehicles. I'm sure you've all seen about the wireless. They can trick your vehicle into thinking the key's there. They come and hover around your door with a detector for the stop-start cars, and they'll trick the signal and open the car and drive off in it. So some of those are in relation to that. Just on the back of that, to stop that crime, if you do have the stop-start, you can get a wallet that prevents the detector, so they can't actually pick up the signal and get into your vehicle. So I would suggest getting one of those, and just visual deterrence and actually physical deterrence. So the steering lock, just ensure you've got a steering lock. I've got a stop start, I put my keys in the bag and I put a big disc lock over the wheel, and touch wood, it's still with me. And then some of those offences, when we talk about vehicle crime, some of them are criminal damages and stuff as well. So they're not all vehicles being stolen. What we have seen, and you've probably seen if you follow our social media accounts and things like that, cat converter thefts. A lot of Honda Jazz cars are being targeted, and they're having the catalytic converters hacked off the bottom and stolen. They've got a certain metal inside that's quite expensive that they can sell, so they're just flogging the parts on, but obviously it's causing a lot of damage and a lot of inconvenience to people, the damage of the cars. Just of note, on Oscott Road a couple of days ago, we did recover a vehicle that had 12 suspected stolen cat thefts in the back of it. So there's inquiries being made around that. And hot off the press yesterday, we did lock somebody up again on the Oscott ward and recovered 2 stolen vehicles from him. So he was in custody last night for those. So we are out and about. We are aware of the offences taking place. For the Oscott ward, it will be the vehicle crime. We put out regular WM Now messages. Again, that's another thing I'd suggest people get involved with. Sign up to WM Now, West Midlands Now, and you'll receive regular messages about crimes that are taking place in your area. So if we had a crime of the cat theft series, we put a message out and we let everybody know. If we've had on a particular road a spate of shed breaks, for example, we'd put a message out just reminding you all of your security and just asking people to feed any information into us if you see any suspicious behaviour. Other things we're involved in, obviously antisocial behaviour. For the ward, on average, we've got about 7.5 cases a week of ASB. ASB can be things out and about on the street, but it's also generated a reference number when it comes to neighbour disputes and things like that, noise nuisance. So again, in terms of ASB, we don't have an awful lot at all. Kings Road, King's Standing Shopping Centre there, we had a few issues around antisocial behaviour. We've managed to identify the youths involved. We've linked in with parents, linked in with youth services, and actually one of them was identified for another matter elsewhere, and he's had involvement from youth services and had conditions placed on him. So we've had the report back that the antisocial behaviours reduced, if not ceased there, so we continue to patrol there. In terms of youth, we look at the intervention and prevention work we do as well. Whenever a youth offender is arrested, we revisit them as a local team, let them know that we know who they are. It's an opportunity for the officers to meet them so they can identify them when they're out and about and just pay a bit more attention to them. As well as that, it's twofold. So we look at what intervention and prevention opportunities we can offer to the youth. If they're not engaged in education, we'll look to put referrals in there and get them engaged into some positive diversion. So hopefully they don't then choose to be out committing antisocial behaviour. We've got Youth Promise Plus, which helps the youth, and we've also got the Prince's Trust project that we can feed them into, again, to get them off the streets and to get them skills onto a CV where hopefully they can go on to get vocation and employment. We've got a new up-and-coming youth provision at Great Bar that's starting this month for teens up to the age of 25 years. They do a lot of work there with local sporting and youth provision, so they work with Aston Villa. They've also got a link with basketball and things like that, and I'm told they can take over 100 people. It's going to start on a Thursday evening. So yeah, it's in Great Bar at the school there, at Fortis Academy, recently changed their name, but it's open to the youth there, so we'll be getting the message out and putting in any referrals that we can for any youth that are hanging around on the street to let them know there's actually local things you can do to get them off. Other bits and pieces that we do, just to let you know, as a team, we are very proactive in our approach, especially on the late shifts. We're out and about exercising our stop search powers as much as we can. Obviously, COVID, we're out policing that as much as we can. We try to engage, explain. I think that was very early doors. So now we're a year into the engaging, explaining. There are a lot more fines being issued. I know our team yesterday up in Oscott issued 3 COVID fines. So that was a couple of £100 worth of fines issued. They weren't best pleased, but they never had reasonable excuses for what they were doing, all in the same address together. And wasn't exactly obliging with what we wanted them to do, shall we say. Just to let you know, as a neighbourhood team, we do have other demands placed upon us. We have to look at arrests of overnight offenders. If there was a high-risk domestic abuse case, for example, it might fall with us, which then takes our officers off the streets. But as much as we can, we like to be out and about, visible. We do a mixture of plain clothes, so you might not always see us, but we've got a couple of plain cars. We operate plain clothes duties as well. As I said before, you can follow our progress on Twitter. We're Perry-Bar Police on Twitter, and I encourage you all to sign up to the WM now so you can get regular updates. We also put out a monthly newsletter on there to let you know what we've been involved in for that month, so it gives you a bit of an idea as to what we've been involved in, and it's also got links in there if you want to feed some information into us. 101, non-emergency for reporting. We can also report things online now as well, and then via Crime Stoppers if you want to report things anonymously. Just on the back of any information that you do put into us anonymously or not, we do listen to what our community tells us, and we do execute warrants on a regular basis on the back of that. And again, if you follow us on Twitter, we will put our updates on of warrants that have been executed and what we found and who's been arrested on the back of those warrants. So I thank you for that information, and just keep feeding it in. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. We will prioritise them as they come in, and we'll tick them off the list and work through them. We have active street watch and neighbourhood watch groups, so I thank you for that. Those involved will know the PCSOs up there, Nick and Brad. I'm sure you've met them on many occasions. They're very keen to get that back up and running, obviously out of COVID. Now things are slowly relaxing, but we'll do that as safely as we can, and they'll be in touch in relation to that. I think that's it in terms of what I've got for updates. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you for doing a good job, and thank you to the guys as well. You do a fantastic job keeping us all safe.
Thank you, Councillor.
Is there any questions? No. Can I ask 2 questions, Claire? Oh, Brenda Wilson.
You may.
So I'll let Brenda come in first. Brenda.
Hello.
All right.
Hi, Claire. It's Brenda Wilson from the Friends of the Aquatic Nature Reserve. What I want to know is, are you still policing the old ground? Because we're having football teams of a Saturday and Sunday, and apart from the fact they're taking all the parking spaces, they're living in the most appalling mess. And I'm pretty sure they're contravening the restrictions.
You're breaking up, Brenda.
Brenda, the reception's very poor. I'm getting every other word what you're saying, but the detective in me are figuring it out. I know what you're telling me. So yeah, we do patrol that, and I know for the last couple of Sundays we've been up there, and I know they are working on that. I did see the emails that you sent with the rubbish that's left behind, and Nick and Brad's obviously on that. So we're at the stage now where if people are setting up formal football matches, the message from me to my team is enforcement, and it's tickets. You can appreciate sometimes we might go there as 2 officers and you've got a lot of people that are walking away from us. It's impossible to detain everybody, but kind of whoever seems to be the organiser with the footballs is kind of who I've told them to target. Whoever seems to be taking the nets back down, to target them. So yeah, we are aware, and I have asked them to patrol that for you.
Thank you for that, Claire.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Keith Airy. Keith.
Yes, living on the King's Road, we've had 1 or 2 comments made that someone's been using an air rifle towards the shopping centre and firing across the road. Do the police know anything about that?
Yes, I'm aware of that. It has ceased. There were several different matters. I know that they've been filed because there's no evidence indicating who's responsible. We're aware. I know we stopped search somebody not too long ago who may or may not be involved, and nothing was found. So we are aware, and we do regularly patrol there, as I said, because the ASB that we've had reported on King's Road and the shopping centre previous. But no, as yet, there's no evidence to point exactly who's involved. And there's a few waggy fingers as to who might be responsible, but I'm told from the investigating officer it's not, because it's from the opposite side of the road where the waggy finger person is. So yeah.
Thanks for that.
No worries.
Thank you, Keith.
Any more questions?
Sorry, I'm asking you 2 questions. It's me, Claire, Councillor Dring. We're having a lot of dogs stolen in the area. Right, that's a matter of concern. and a lot of them are being advertised outside the area as well. And also, can you tell me, are you still monitoring what's happening to the rehabilitation centre down Shady Lane? Okay.
In relation to dogs, I don't know how true that is when we say lots of dogs, because they're certainly not popping up on our crime reports. But I know the fear of dogs being stolen. I know it's all over Facebook, isn't it? And people talking about dogs in general being targeted. But they're certainly not popping up as being reported as stolen dogs. So whether that's people not reporting it to us, or whether that's just people afraid because people are talking about stolen dogs, but we're certainly not getting stolen dog reports to us. In relation to the rehabilitation centre, it often rears its head, I think more so from yourself, Barbara, for people complaining to you, but we don't get the complaints in relation to it. I've sent Brad and Nick out. I know they've been doing some door knocking up there in relation to it, but no, very few and far between. We're not getting the complaints. They're telling me that they sit up there regularly and have a look at the people coming and going, but people just collect their scripts and leave. So what I would say is, for whoever's reporting it to yourself, then maybe to feed it into us with a bit more information, detail, whether it be description that we could then look on the CCTV for the place if there is any. I've not actually visited there myself, so I'm not sure. But just to dwindle it down as to times, because the guys, when they're up there, they're not getting any ASB, any issues. They're watching people go and leave with what they've gone to collect.
Well, my advice to them is to report it to the police and to get a crime number, right? And I'm assured they are doing that. So obviously I'm not being told the whole truth, but we do have a lot of problems down there, Claire, you know. So I've had meetings myself with the management of that rehabilitation centre, and they've made promises and they haven't been kept, but I shall be keeping my eye on it in the future, and I'll make sure you know as well what's going on. Okay.
Right, keep feeding it in and just let obviously the constituents know to report it via 101 or via a web chat. I know sometimes it can take quite a while for 101, but if they want to just report it via a web chat, at least we're getting trends of when it's happening and what is exactly happening. But I think other than yourself, Barbara, we're not getting the reports, so just encourage them to report things to us as opposed to third party for a year. Brenda
Wilson, you got your hand up.
Hiya. It's me again. I live just down the road from that centre. I mean, I don't actually witness any of the antisocial behaviour going on, but I do know that it is going on, because the people who live opposite seem to get the full effect of it. I can vouch that there are problems there.
Okay, so one to keep an eye on. I'll ask Brad and Nick again. They've told me they've done door knocks. They've heard of a few things happening, but nothing major, nothing consistent. May well be worth, maybe I'll ask them to do a letter drop, ASB letter drop, and ask people to start recording and reporting exactly what's happening, so we can get a better picture of what's going on.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Brenda. Thank you very much for coming this evening, Claire. I know you're busy, and thank you for all that you're doing in Oscott, and I think everybody should, you know, thank you as well, because you're keeping us safe and making sure we're okay. But thank you again. Okay, no more questions.
Thank you, you're quite welcome.
Right. Next item on the agenda is Cllr Highways, and that's Lucy O'Grady and Keith Smith.
Evening, Councillor.
Good evening. Evening, Lucy.
Lucy, you're still on mute.
Thank you.
Hello, Lucy. Hello, Keith.
Hi.
Sorry.
Who's going first?
I think it will be me, and then we'll pass over to Keith, if that's all right, Councillor.
Okay.
Thank you for having us. We're not invited to too many of these virtual ward committee meetings, and this is our first since our transition from Amy to Cllr.
Well, join the club, it's our first as well.
So I'll try and give a bit of an update. It's our first Oscott one, I should say. I'll try and give a bit of an update as to the changes that we've seen and the way things have moved on since our Amy predecessors have left us, and what changes you can expect to see coming forward. for those that don't know, on the 1st of April, Keith and I are Cllr Highways. So we are the highways contractors for Birmingham City Council. And previously the highways contract was awarded to Amy. Amy have now departed. They are long gone. And Keith and I now wear a new badge that says Cllr. Luckily and gratefully, all 367 staff tupied over to Cllr, so we've maintained the same workforce, but you will see, or hopefully you'll see, and I've noted some changes since the transition over to Cllr. I think it's fair to say that the previous contract between Amy and City Council was a strained one at best. And the amount of work on the highway network was nowhere near what us as employees would have liked to have seen, and I'm sure what you guys as constituents and residents and elected members would have liked to have seen. Cllr came in on the 1st of April, which was smack bang in the middle of the pandemic. So we have transitioned during the pandemic, but we remained working as key workers. So all of our staff and all of our services continued. So we continued with the inspections of the footways and carriageways and the roads and the pavements. We continued looking after the trees, the street lights, the traffic signals, all of the usual highway services that you would expect to see from the highways maintenance. We continued, but we've also assisted with the COVID efforts across the city. Which is something that we're particularly proud of. We wish we hadn't had to do it. Obviously, it's a very distressing time for everyone, but we have been installing the social distancing measures on most of the high streets that you see, spraying the 2 metre differences, installing extra footway barriers and things that you can see to give you the extra room as you move down. Regrettably, and rather sadly, we've been assisting our colleagues in the bereavement services with grave digging due to the extra resource needed for that. And we've been assisting efforts when we had some significant flooding back in, it was October and June, with preventing some of the cemeteries and crematoriums from flooding. So we've been doing some extra work over there to make sure that that doesn't happen again. As I say, the Cllr have undertaken, since we started, a massive backlog catch-up sort of programme, I suppose, if you want to call it. Amy left behind a legacy of work and outstanding repairs that needed to be picked up. So we are currently in the middle of picking all of those defects up. That's not to say that things haven't changed. So hopefully you'll have noticed we are accelerating through defects and repairing defects at a quicker pace than we ever have previously, or than Amy did. There are still a huge amount of highway defects out there. We know that. We know about the potholes. We're getting there, is what I will say. The drive and the programs to get those defects completed is a constantly evolving machine. So we are constantly feeding in new repairs that are required, and the teams are constantly programming new ones to try and come out and target them. But just to give you an idea of how that looks, we do have a visual, if I'm okay to share my screen, Councillor Dring.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Lucy.
So, can you all see that?
No.
No, you can't. How about now?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
So between April and December, this details some of the numbers, and I can forward this to Bev or Councillor Dring afterwards. But it details some of the huge efforts that have been going on to try and catch up with a lot of the legacy that Amy left behind. I mean, I won't talk you through all of those, but even during the pandemic, I think we received nearly 11,000 public inquiries. We attended of those, you know, we attended 16,500 inquiries that were raised either by our inspectors or by members of public within 2 hours. So there is a huge programme of work going on to make sure that we are keeping the network safe and moving. In addition to the maintenance side of things, we have what's called an integrated work programme. So again, this was, oh, apologies, that just shows 1 month. I'll talk you through the programme, but we are in the midst of a resurfacing programme as well. So again, with Amy, there was very little resurfacing going on. It was a lot of patching, a lot of repairing. We are now doing full resurfacing of Footways and Carriageway sections, and the programme of that is again a constantly evolving one. I believe it was issued out to members on the 18th of June last year, Councillor Dring, and there's another updated version due to you in the next few weeks, which will take us up to the end of the interim contract, which is the end of June, by which we hope to know whether Cllr will be appointed and stay, or whether we will be extended, or what will be happening.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that was in terms of an update. What we're going to do then is pass over to Keith for any local issues that you guys may have. So I tend to do the.
Well, I've got Lucy. I've got Mr. Brain here, and he's got a question for you. So I'll let him ask your question. His question. Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Brain.
Yes, I'm here, Councillor Dring. King's Standing Road.
Yeah.
From the island up to sort of where the old Hare and Hounds was. I reported that, and eventually it got to Councillor Ward, and he said that the highways inspectors had been out and didn't consider that road bad enough for urgent repairs. Well, I tend to completely disagree with the highways inspectors, and I think I noted that they were driving in cars. Well, at one time, I know it's old, highways inspectors used to walk up and down the road, not in the road, but up and down the road, and I'm sure they could see more than somebody driving a car who has to keep their eyes on the road. Oh, unless there's two people in the car. But the roads in this city, I've had to drive over to Solihull Hospital 2 or 3 times in the last year. And everywhere you go in this city, the roads are an absolute disgrace. I know you might say it's all been left by Amy, but, you know, this is an ongoing thing. I'm noticing we tend to concentrate now more on putting barriers and traffic lights and one thing up. I know it all comes under this safety policy, but that must cost a fantastic amount of money for all this road safety, money that could be spent on the road itself. But there seems to me to be no real policy for repairing these roads. There must be even main roads, Newtown Road, you see potholes on the main roads. This city is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. Can you do something about it? Hopefully, Cllr. The biggest waste of money ever was the other people who got out with a nice tidy sum, and I hope they're going to get fined for some of the work they've left behind. But you know, the roads in this city are an absolute disgrace. Thank you.
I take the points about the cost and the money spent, and then I'll probably pass over to Keith to describe about how the inspections take place and walks or driven. In terms of cost and money spent, it is in the public realm, so I'm not just telling you anything that isn't already out there. But there will be between June 2020 and June and end of May 2021, there's going to be £50 million worth of investment in the infrastructure in the roads across Birmingham. So we are probably around 50% of the way through that. We still have some way to go, but there is huge amounts of expenditure planned. Now that is on not just on full resurfacing, but it's on the maintenance, on pothole repairs, on patching. As I say, we are undertaking huge volumes of work, bigger than we ever have previously. We're getting there. I appreciate it is a very slow process, but we are getting there. And I should also point out that £50 million that is being invested is not from the taxpayer's purse, and it's not from any other investment other than what was agreed as the part of the Amy departure package. When they departed and bought themselves out of the contract, they did leave a sum of money that would be used for this. So be assured, yes, we do have a huge amount of work ahead of us. We know that there's a mountain to climb. We're confident that we're going to do it. Cllr have a fantastic attitude. Cllr have a very candid. They want to be in this city and for the remainder of the contract, which is until 2035. And we're working as fast as we can to try and get that done. Some of the roads you mentioned there, I saw Keith smiling. King Standing Road. The other one I can't remember, near the Barton Arms pub. But all of those roads, they are well known to us. I think Keith must say the word King Standing Road 100 times a day. And there is constant reviews of King Standing. We are very hopeful that we will see some significant work on the King Standing Road soon. But as I say, I was just saying there is a new programme due out in the next few weeks. We don't know what that's going to feature, but we do have more of an influence over this programme. So we are able to put roads in. I can almost guarantee that will be top of Keith's list when he gets to choose some of the roads that he believes need looking at. But then I will pass over to Keith if you want to explain about how the inspections take place.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm glad you give us a bit of good news.
It is very positive for once. For what we are very positive.
Yeah. Right, Keith, do you want to come in? Can't hear you. You're still muted, Keith.
Sorry, I do apologise. That's a schoolboy error in this time now, isn't it? We've been doing this long enough. I should know the difference. Anyway, I'm Keith. I'm the highway steward for the Oscott ward. I'm also a fully trained inspector. And probably about 3 weeks ago, I was the inspector that walked the King Standing Road from George Frederick Road all the way down to College Road, and I froze. It was horrendously cold. So yes, there are occasions where you'll see us in vans knocking about, and we'll come and investigate individual potholes when we've had inquiries. And we do a driven inspection of the majority of the main routes in Oscott at least once a month. Some of them are on 3 monthly inspections. But yes, every 6 months, every road in Oscott gets walked. And yes, I know the pain of the King Standing Road. It is on my route into work, and I have checked every single pothole on that road, and anything that meets our criteria has been raised. Now, with the letters you get back, unfortunately, they have to be worded in certain ways to make sure that we don't mislead anybody, but they can sometimes sound like we're dismissing something. We're not saying that pothole doesn't exist. We're just saying on our scale of risk, that doesn't class as something that we would go out and repair within, temporary repair within 2 hours and full repair within 35 days. What it does generally mean, in a lot of cases on the King Standing Road, is we have noted that there is a pothole there, and it's either not to criteria and we will monitor it on our routine inspections, or we have a job raised and the repair will hopefully be done within the next sort of 6 months if all goes well. Yeah, it certainly does look at times like nothing's happening, but I promise you we are monitoring all the roads in the area, and the King Standing Road gets a very close eye from me, because I have that frustration of driving down it too. And as soon as we are available to do some work on there, we'll get on it. Same with Newtown Row. It's another one. Unfortunately, what happens on some of the main commuter routes, it's the surface layer of the carriageway that comes off, and as much as it's uncomfortable maybe to drive over, and it doesn't look very nice to drive over, and it will affect quite a lot of people driving down it, the surface layer generally doesn't bring it to a dangerous standard. It's when we go into the sub base of the road where the defects start getting a bit more dangerous. Not to say that it's not always, doesn't always have to be into the base layer of the road to be dangerous. Say if it's at a crossing point or somewhere that's a bit more important, where school children cross over the road or near to shops, we can take that into account on how we score it against our risk matrix. But they are all scored. They are all looked at on their own individual measure to merit, and we will program them as we see that they need to do so. And for each inspector that does that, that inspector will have to stand up in court and defend it should anything go wrong. So if I go out there and say, I don't believe this is dangerous, I'm saying that now that I could stand in front of a judge and say that. So it's not something we take lightly. If anybody's got any sort of specifics that they need us to go to, you can ping in an inquiry on the Birmingham website or contact the local councillor, and we'll go out and look at them individually. But we do monitor the whole network at least once every 6 months. Any questions?
Thank you, Keith. We do feed the complaints in as they come. King's Standing has been a priority in Oscott because even though it's the other side of the dual carriageway, which doesn't come under Oscott, we still use that road as commuters, and it is quite bad. And I've got to support Mr. Brain on this one, you know. So, and he wasn't at all pleased with the response that he got. But I'm pleased to hear what Lucy said, that it's, you know, at the top of the list when we do get cracking. Hopefully. Is that what you meant, Lucy? More or less.
Something along those lines.
Okay. Any questions, anybody? No?
Oh.
Right. Can I thank...
Keith has a question.
Oh, Keith. Keith Airy.
Yeah. I'd actually like to congratulate the contractors, because I reported a pothole on a Saturday afternoon on the King's Road near to the Shady Lane lights, and within an hour someone had been out and done a temporary repair, and now I notice it's marked up as if there's going to be a more substantial repair done. So I guess it could be my namesake, as it were, doing that one.
Yeah, I was out there marking that one up the other week. Was it last week or something like that you reported it?
No, it was amazing. Saturday afternoon.
I've been down there marking that one up.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Just one more thing before we depart. I probably should mention as well, we are in our winter maintenance period, so we're gritting as and when, and we are expecting a very cold weekend this weekend with lots of gritting call out. Well, we will be making the gritting call outs. So wrap up and stay inside as much as you can.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. Can I thank you and Keith for coming? It's nice to see you again.
And you.
Hope you enjoyed your first meeting with us.
We did. We always enjoy the Oscott ones, and our condolences for Councillor Lineker. We were very sad.
Yes. We miss him terribly.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Okay, but thank you, both of you. All right. Right. No, you can go if you want to, but it's up to you. You can stay if you want to as well.
It's been a long day. We might cut off. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is neighbourhood network scheme, and Neil DeCosta is going to give a report on that.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to come to the meeting, Councillor Dring. So what I'd like to do is to just give you a brief update on some of the fantastic people and organisations that have been providing what we call emergency support and assistance across Oscott Ward, and also across Perry Barr constituency during the pandemic. As you know, we're now in lockdown 3, and there have been some fantastic organisations such as St Mark's Community Hub. You have Cedar Church. You've got organisations like Sporting Elite that have been providing lots of different services, such as meals for people that are in need of food support, that have been providing food parcels, that have been collecting prescriptions. You even have organisations such as the 3Bs Neighbourhood Forum that have come across from Perry Barr. But lots of organisations as part of Perry Barr Neighbourhood Network scheme that have been supporting residents during the pandemic. So Keith, thanks very much indeed for joining us, because you are obviously one of those fantastic people and organisations through St Mark's Community Hub that have been providing those services. So Perry Barr has a neighbourhood network scheme, and what it is, it's a scheme that was set up just over 2 years ago now, in conjunction with adult social care. So it's funded through adult social care. And what we do is we connect social workers and the need of citizens across Perry Barr constituency with provision within their wards. Now, your local councillor, Councillor Dring, sits on our partnership steering group. And what we do, we work with community organisations, volunteers and groups, and we provide grants and funding, principally for activities for people who are 50 plus. During the pandemic, what we've done, we've changed those age groups. If anybody has come to us with any need in terms of food and lots of other different things, what we've done, we've worked with organisations to try and support that need, and we've done it, pretty successfully. We're in absolutely terrible, unprecedented times, and it's just been absolutely fantastic that lots of organisations, individuals, volunteers, neighbours have really found a lot of that community spirit that used to be around decades ago. And what we want to do as part of Perry Barr Neighbourhood Network scheme through Birmingham City Council is to try and support that as much as we can going forward. Now, in terms of other updates that I have, I work closely with Councillor Dring. Councillor Dring, has been absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, we've lost our, one of our major advocates within Oscott Ward, Councillor Keith Lineker. And sadly, we've also lost another fantastic person who supported us greatly in Oscott Ward, a person by the name of Ken Brown, who was one of my colleagues in my team, who you may remember. Very, very sad year. And obviously, a lot of us personally have had lots of losses. Nevertheless, we're going to keep on, trying our very, very best for Oscott residents going forward. So thank you, because I know a lot of people that are present today are also involved in supporting your neighbours and doing lots of positive things. And I thank you for that. And I just want you to reassure you that we are trying our very best. Councillor Dring actually mentioned earlier that, again, I'm supporting the case for a village green at Glenmead. What we've managed to do is to secure funding to keep the grass cut. We still have some more funding to do that. There was a consultation exercise that was carried out in September, because some of you may have responded to a lot of the the kind of questionnaires and a lot of the support that the councillors had done previously over years to look into the possibility of a village green. What happened is we did submit the application. Councillor Dring submitted the application, and unfortunately our legal services within Birmingham City Council required more information, so we had to carry out another consultation, which was done last September. You can imagine it was really difficult because we were in lockdowns. So an organisation called the United Community Activity Network, and they went out and did door knocking, and there was an opportunity for people to get involved online. So we've had a very, very good response. We've submitted the application, and the only thing that we need to do now is we just need to copy all of those applications and forward them in to our legal services department, and hopefully that will be enough to start the process for getting that considered as a village green. Now, my final update, and I hope I'll be able to share this and share my screen and you'll be able to hear it, is the fact that there's a pot of money that's coming to Oscott Ward called the Celebrating Communities Fund, which has been launched by the Commonwealth Games Legacy team this week. And it's a little bit of resource that's come into Oscott Ward that organisations are going to be able to apply for, principally around things that celebrate the fact that the Commonwealth Games is coming to Birmingham, but also it's really rooted in community and supporting communities. So at this point, I'm going to try and share my screen, and I hope this works. So just bear with me. Now, I'm just pausing it at the moment just to check whether you can hear the sound, and I'll start it again if you can just tell me whether you can hear the sound.
I can hear you, Neil.
I can see, we can see it, Neil, but I can't hear the sound.
I can hear.
Oh, can you hear the sound?
I can.
I can't.
Beverly can't. Beverly can't.
It's probably
Okay.
my headphones, but
I can't hear either. I can't hear.
Okay, let me just come back out and just make sure that there's an option that's been selected that allows you to do that. If not, what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you the details outside of the meeting. So just bear with me.
Still can't hear anything.
Not to worry all, very sorry. We've all got your email details and what have you. So what I'll do, I'll make sure that you get information about the Celebrating Communities Fund. But again, it's really good because organisations are going to have an opportunity to, as I say, apply for some funding that's going to be available, you know, from April. And there are going to be 2 rounds. So the first round from April round about to about September, and there's going to be a second round beyond that. So that's a little bit of good news. So Councillor, at this stage, I'm going to pause and I'll answer any questions that come through.
Can I just say, Neil, that all our groups in Oscott, and we've got quite a few of them, are aware that they can apply for this funding. And it's not just the elderly, it's the young, it's right across the piece, and it should be, you know, benefit everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, any questions? No questions? You got off light?
I certainly did.
You did, you have.
Thanks,
That's
Catherine.
we keep everybody well informed if we can, Neil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, no questions. Can I thank you for coming as well, Neil?
Thanks, Councillor Dring. It's my pleasure, and I'll support the meetings in the interim.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the last item on the agenda is the residents and the community groups or voluntary groups. Is there anybody who wants to say anything to the meeting before we close the meeting? No? Right. Can I thank you all for coming? And thank you for quite a good meeting, really, given it. Oh, Derek, you've got a question. Derek.
Your question, Barbara. I missed the start of this meeting, and I believe you was having a minute silence. I would just like to say that this Oscott Ward has lost a great councillor in Councillor Lineker, who when I first met him, I thought, oh, I don't like him. But over the years, I grew to respect him very, very much. And whoever replaces him, whether he or she is anywhere near him, will have a good counsellor. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, Derek. We all miss Keith very much. Right. So if there's no more questions, I thank you all for coming. I think we've done well on our first meeting, and I'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll have some more people attending as well. Thank you, everybody. So if you switch off your microphones and you leave the meeting, it's at the top there, then I'll see you next time. We will notify you of the date of the next meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Councillor Dring.
Thank you.
Councillor Dring, do you want to stay on for a little while?
Yeah. Okay, has everybody gone? No, Derek, you've gone?
I'm just removing them now, just letting them go.
No.
I'm still here.